Saskatoon has come a long way over the past century, quickly growing from western frontier town to a bustling hub of economic activity. We built bridges and buildings to last. We planned our neighborhoods and built homes for a steadily growing population. We created a city with an enviable quality of life, supported by a robust economy. Now we have to plan our city for the next century, even as development continues nonstop. This is and will be a very different century than the last one, with very different economic, social, and environmental challenges. It became apparent through the Saskatoon Speaks initiative that sustainable growth is a community priority. It makes sense. We value our environment and the wise use of resources. We value a sense of community and cultural diversity. We value innovation. These are all fundamental to sustainability. Council's new strategic plan, adopted in February, carries forward this theme of sustainable growth, making it one of the plan's 7 overarching goals. Closely connected to sustainable growth is the goal of moving around, because, as you'll see in this presentation, how we grow as a city has a lot to do with how we move around, and vice versa. Sustainable growth and moving around are not only key goals on their own. Striving to achieve them will also be critical to achieving other goals in the strategic plan. Now, we want to share with you Council's priorities for sustainable growth and moving around, but first we'll explain why these themes are so important and how addressing them together might change Saskatoon for the better. Bringing various departments together, the city has been looking at how Saskatoon has grown, and we've been looking closely at the impacts of extending our recent patterns of growth 50 years into the future. Saskatoon grew rapidly in its early years, more slowly during the 1930s and the Second World War, and what's interesting is the pattern of early growth. Our early neighborhoods were built for walking and transit because that's how most people got around. There are many connections and many different types of buildings in the older areas of the city. And not coincidentally, that's still where you'll find some of our most attractive neighborhoods. Neighborhoods with a variety of housing, where local shops are not too far away, and it's easy to get places by walking or cycling. After the Second World War, like every city, we started designing cities around the car. We sprawled out, extended roads, sewers, and water lines, and got used to driving everywhere. With many more cars to accommodate, the predominant pattern of growth changed. Major roads and highways were designed to carry large volumes of traffic. Local roads became discontinuous. The very low density of development meant that infrastructure of all types had to be extended great distances in all directions. This aerial photo illustrates the pattern of suburban development we've become accustomed to. This is a typical new neighborhood with curvilinear streets and dead ends and bordered by busy roads that act as barriers. If you live in this neighborhood, you need a car to get almost anywhere or someone to drive you. And if we keep growing like this, car trips will become longer. Now let me illustrate what we discovered when we mapped out Saskatoon's future under a status quo scenario that simply extends the post-war development pattern. This diagram shows where Saskatoonians live and work today. Based on the current size of our city, most of us have a relatively short drive to work. This diagram shows the primary movement patterns to the north employment area. Now this shows the primary movement patterns to workplaces downtown, the university, and Innovation Place, with again a relatively short drive for most of us. This diagram shows new areas of growth and what our footprint could be when we're a city of 500,000 people. If we were to continue to grow outwards to a population of 500,000 with the same neighborhood density and street patterns, the future drive to work will be longer and more expensive. Not only that, but congestion increases as our existing roads are forced to accommodate the additional traffic. The picture is the same no matter where you work. The average commute time of 15 minutes would no longer be possible. New or improved roads will help but not solve the problem. In the built-up part of the city, it's not possible or desirable to widen most roads. The costs associated with growing continuously and almost exclusively outward are very high, in fact much higher than most cities plan for. Larger cities have all learned this lesson and are now paying the price. Yes, Saskatoon is smaller than these cities, but we face the same challenges. Our community understands this. They've been to other sprawling cities, and they read newspapers. Through Saskatoon Speaks, we heard over and over again, let's not repeat the mistakes of other fast-growing cities. Let's do a better job of planning. Now, here are the consequences of our car-oriented city. Places for living, working, and shopping are separated from one another. There are few physical connections between neighborhoods. Our major roads discourage walking, cycling, and taking the bus. When we think about our aging population and the number of newcomers we're trying to attract, the lack of mobility options is a serious problem. And more cars on the road and more time spent driving has significant environmental, social, and economic costs. We can prevent future transportation problems and build a sustainable city by paying more attention to the urban design of Saskatoon. Not just how it looks, although that's important, but also how the various systems and parts of the city work together in mutually reinforcing ways. Now, this is what we mean by an integrated approach. If we focus growth in certain areas and design our city not just for driving, but for traveling by foot, bicycle, wheelchair, scooter, and public transit, then moving around will be easier for everyone year-round and will create healthier communities. The integrated approach we're taking to growth planning is embedded in these principles. They flow directly from the values of Saskatoonians and the community's vision for the future. As we implement our new approach to growth, this will be our checklist to ensure we're on the right track. What will this integrated approach mean for Saskatoon? What changes might it bring? Let's take a look. We are going to need to build more roads and bridges as we grow. In the city's north end, we will need at least one new bridge across the river, but an integrated approach means balancing those investments with investments in major transit facilities and improved service. The innovation team has identified the opportunity for an east-west rapid transit corridor that over time would reorient the structure of our city, support a more sustainable pattern of growth, and provide a viable alternative to driving for many of our citizens. The city's bus system will complement and feed into the rapid transit corridor. If we pursue this balanced approach to transportation, 8th Street could one day look like this. At first, our mobility corridors would not likely have light rail transit, which is what you see here. They could start with comfortable buses in their own lanes with a much higher frequency of service. And 20th Street could look something like this in 20 years. Higher order transit is a great way to attract both office and residential development along major corridors. Many important mobility corridors in the city would evolve into main streets that have a look and feel not unlike Broadway. These are streets designed for people that tie neighborhoods together and support local businesses. This is what 33rd Street could look like in the future. Encouraging a mix of housing and small businesses on these key corridors is a great way to revitalize older neighborhoods. Main streets are also a great idea for the new communities we'll be building in the future. Saskatoon's highways and other major roads would continue to be designed for mostly cars and trucks, but some important corridors running through the city, like Idlewild Drive, would become more complete. They would have improved pedestrian zones and facilities for cyclists. Idlewild Drive could look something like this in the future. An integrated approach would put even more emphasis on focusing office and high-density residential development downtown. This will be critical to supporting an improved rapid transit network. There are many places for new development downtown and many opportunities to create pedestrian-friendly streetscapes. The intersection of 22nd Street and Idlewild Drive could look something like this in the future. Our suburban centers have enormous potential to become denser and more compact with a mix of uses that turn them into urban villages. Now, this is a typical 1970s strip mall. This trend of turning shopping malls and plazas into beautiful people places for shopping, living, and working has been successful even in winter cities like ours. In addition to our suburban centers, there are large areas of the city that could accommodate significant population growth, or in some cases, employment. The goal for many of these areas would be similar: to create compact, mixed-use, walkable neighborhoods. There's already a plan for one of these areas, College Quarter, adjacent to the University of Saskatchewan campus. Although new growth in the city should respect the character of existing stable neighborhoods, there will be opportunities for sensitive infill development that keeps neighborhoods vital. This can take different forms depending on the area. As our neighborhoods evolve, it will be important to ensure the parks, streets, and community facilities within them are kept up to a high standard. We will continue to build new communities to the east and west. In fact, most of our population growth will likely be accommodated in the yellow areas you see here. Taking an integrated approach to these expansion areas means learning from our old neighborhoods, making them walkable, connecting them to transit stations, providing a mix of housing including affordable housing, and having a range of amenities close by. We've taken steps toward more sustainable new neighborhoods, but we can be more innovative. Our new neighborhoods should be as diverse as our population, with a variety of housing types, architectural styles, and gathering places. When we put these various pieces of our future city together, the result is an integrated city, one that is more complex and diverse than the Saskatoon of the 20th century, a sustainable city with a quality of life even higher than it is today, a city ready for the opportunities and challenges of the 21st century. This is the concept for New Growth and Transportation Plan for Saskatoon. We have more work to do, refinements to make, but we have an approach that makes sense. So in the coming months, we will take steps to implement these 9 integrated growth strategies. These will help to solidify and elaborate on the growth concept and put our plan into action. Along the way, we will engage the Saskatoon community for their input and feedback, and we'll be reporting regularly to City Council.